What happens when we die? A woman named Pam Reynolds was in the middle of brain surgery when suddenly her breathing and heartbeat stopped. Moments later, it seemed to her that she was floating in the room, watching the doctors operate on her own body. She started to feel more and more aware of her surroundings, and her vision became clearer than usual. Suddenly, while she was watching the operation, she noticed a strange presence and decided to follow it. While following the presence, it seemed as if she was being pulled toward a mysterious light. As she approached the light, she began to discern the figure she had been following. It was her grandmother, and with her grandmother was her uncle and other deceased relatives. At that moment, she felt at peace. She felt happiness. But shortly after, her relatives told her that she couldn't stay with them because she needed to go back to her body. Pam refused, but her uncle pushed her back into her body. Suddenly, she felt very cold, as if she had jumped into ice water. That was the last thing she could remember before gaining consciousness. The operation was successful. This story is based on Pam Reynolds' account, a real-life experience. Apparently, many other individuals have also experienced such similar phenomena. With all of that said, have you ever wondered what happens after you die? What happens to your body? What does death actually feel like? Do we really have a soul that leaves our body and goes somewhere really far away? Or will death only lead us to pure oblivion? To nothingness? All of these questions have long been asked. Today, we will try to answer them. Throughout history, countless minds have expressed their own individual notions and beliefs regarding the mysterious phenomenon of death. Religion and spirituality have long been the guide of many when it comes to such concepts. In 2023, a survey conducted by Pew Research Center showed that 83% of US adults believe that people have a soul or spirit in addition to their physical body. 71% of the respondents believe in heaven, often described as the highest place, the holiest place, and a paradise for all who lived good and noble lives. Meanwhile, 61% of the respondents believe in hell, described as a place of torture and punishment after death, meant for those who spent their lives doing evil. And 60% of the respondents believe that both heaven and hell exist after death, and you will end up going to whichever you deserve, depending on how you lived your life. While that portion believed in heaven and hell, 27% of US adults believe it is true that the dead can be reincarnated, defined in the survey as being reborn again and again in this world. With all of these in mind, it seems that a large number of individuals in today's modern era still hold the concept of life after death close to their hearts. At the same time, some individuals believe that nothing is in store for us after we die. We simply return to ashes and cease to exist, falling into eternal oblivion. But it can be difficult to wrap one's mind around the idea that eventually thought and consciousness will disappear forever, with no possibility of experiencing any form of afterlife or continuation of the self. To some, the thought of intense pain to be followed by endless nothingness becomes too overwhelming that they develop an intense fear of it. Thanatophobia, also known as death anxiety, is the intense fear of death or the dying process. Every human being is bound to fear death to an extent, as we are programmed to survive. But the fear that looms over people with death anxiety is so severe that it can affect their daily lives. People with this phobia may experience panic attacks or have difficulty sleeping at night whenever morbid thoughts resurface. They may also appear very avoidant when it comes to talking about death or the dying process with other people. Now, as we go deeper into these dire possibilities and realities surrounding death, if this video intrigues you, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to always be part of our intellectual and thought-provoking discussions. Going back to our topic, what actually happens when we die? What does death even feel like? We can explore a multitude of theories and religions and still find no exact, verifiable answer. After all, we are still alive, and nobody who has ever truly died lived to tell the tale, pun intended. However, there are some who have had near-death experiences, and what they say they've encountered while walking towards death's door is quite interesting. Some say that the experience is like crossing a threshold into another realm, where time and space lose their familiar boundaries. Others describe it as a profound sense of peace enveloping them, as if they're being embraced by a divine presence. In recent decades, scientists have been studying near-death experiences to demystify how death overcomes the brain. Dr. Sam Parnia, Director of Critical Care and Resuscitation Research at NYU Langone School of Medicine in New York City, was one of the scientists able to conduct research on this puzzling occurrence. Dr. Parnia notes that many of the individuals he has encountered recount experiences of floating above their own body, observing the medical team as they work to revive them. These individuals who've undergone such an experience can accurately recall the events occurring around them afterward, despite medical professionals having classified them as clinically dead or unconscious at the time. The doctor confirms that the medical staff were able to validate the accuracy of the individual's recollections of the events that transpired while they were unconscious. But how could people who were technically dead be actually aware of everything that went on afterward? Well, this could be because of a certain phenomenon where one may still be conscious during the dying process. Dr. Parnia explains that even after our breathing and heartbeat cease, we may still remain conscious for a brief period, typically lasting 2 to 20 seconds. During that period, you remain conscious even as you lose all your brainstem reflexes, such as the gag reflex and the ability to move your pupils. But as you've become immobile, the cerebral cortex, the part of our brain responsible for thinking, decision-making, and processing sensory information, continues to function even without oxygen. This could explain why some people may still be aware of their surroundings, even after a brief period of death. But this doesn't really justify the accounts claiming to float around the room as medical professionals try to revive them. For this peculiar phenomenon, some point to physiological and neurological explanations, such as oxygen deprivation or alterations in brain function, while others propose more metaphysical or spiritual interpretations. Physiological explanations often focus on the brain's response to decreased oxygen levels or changes in brain activity during periods of stress or trauma. In other words, the release of certain neurotransmitters or endorphins may produce hallucinatory experiences that feel vividly real to the individual. This could also explain why some claim to have encountered their deceased loved ones or a mightier being while they were in the process of dying. On the other hand, some researchers explore the possibility of consciousness existing beyond the physical body, suggesting that near-death experiences provide glimpses into non-physical realms or dimensions. Nevertheless, near-death experiences may simply be just that, a chilling experience close to death, but not exactly death. Real death can actually be classified into 2 types or 2 stages. The first one is called somatic death, also known as clinical death. This is when a person's brain function ceases, and all noticeable activities indicating life come to a complete halt. In this stage, most of the body cells are already dead, but there may still be some that haven't stopped working yet. This stage of death is what individuals who've encountered near-death experiences start to undergo, seconds before they are brought back to life. When a person undergoes somatic death, their body goes through numerous fascinating changes. Upon death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen due to a chemical reaction called rigor mortis. Normally, when a person is alive, their muscles are able to contract and relax, allowing for movement. But after death, the body's energy stores are depleted, causing the muscles to lock in place and become rigid. Skin also loses its color after death. When the heart stops pumping blood, gravity pulls the blood down to the dependent areas of the body, creating visible patches of discoloration. This is called livor mortis, or lividity. The body also gets colder in a process known as algor mortis. Normally, the body generates heat through metabolic processes, but after death, this heat production stops, and the body starts losing heat to its surroundings. And when the heart stops pumping blood, oxygen and nutrients are no longer delivered to the cells, leading to a cascade of biochemical reactions that cause cells to self-destruct. This breaking down of cells and tissues after death is what we call autolysis. And what comes after this process would ultimately be putrefaction, where bacteria from the gut start invading the body. After death, the body becomes an ideal environment for bacteria from the gut, and surrounding environment to proliferate and multiply rapidly. These bacteria release enzymes and gases that cause the body to bloat, produce foul odors, and eventually liquefy. Now, having said all of those, one would think that would be the end of one's end, but the body actually still has a second physical death to undergo. This second death is called molecular death, the gradual and ultimate death of all cells in the body. This happens right after somatic death and is due to the loss of blood flow and oxygen for the survival of the cells and the tissues. The irreversible conditions that take place at somatic death can be confirmed by the molecular death, especially the stiffening of muscles and the cold temperature. Molecular death may not seem much to acknowledge, but its confirmation is actually quite important. In the case of an immediate body cremation, if the molecular death is not fulfilled, subtle movements of the body may take place, giving rise to confusion as to whether the person is actually dead or not. How can a body still move even after it's dead, you may wonder? Interestingly, residual nerve activity or muscle contractions can still linger in the body for a short period during early stages of decomposition. These are involuntary movements that typically happen due to lingering electrical impulses in the nerves or muscle cells. These movements might include twitching or spasms, which can be mistaken for signs of life by observers. Therefore, medical personnel should always confirm both somatic death and molecular death when a person dies. Now that we've mentioned it, these involuntary movements of the dead body can be even more peculiar than what it already sounds like. Perhaps one of the creepiest things a dead body can do is make noises that sound like moans and groans. While it may seem like something straight out of a zombie movie, there's actually a perfectly reasonable explanation for this. This post-mortem groaning happens when air escapes from the lungs or vocal cords due to changes in pressure within the body after death. This phenomenon can sometimes happen shortly after death and is believed to be caused by the relaxation of muscles and tissues in the throat and airways. It's also not uncommon for bodily functions to continue for a brief moment after death. Due to the sudden lack of muscle tension, which typically happens a few hours after rigor mortis, the human body can release waste products. The bladder may empty, as well as the colon. In other words, after death, the body may still expel various substances from within. A dead body may even still give birth. This phenomenon is what we call coffin birth, and it happens when gases build up in the abdomen of a deceased pregnant woman. The buildup of gases can exert pressure on the uterus, leading to the expulsion of the fetus. Depending on what position a person was in when they died, it's even possible for the body to get an erection after death. This is due to the pooling of blood, which is no longer being circulated through the body. It can also be caused by rigor mortis. When the muscles begin to stiffen, the genitals may also follow. Such an occurrence even makes it possible for a dead body to ejaculate. And though it can be quite disturbing for witnesses, it's all part of the natural process. Those are some explanations on things that happen and could happen to our body when we die. We can answer the observable through science, but mankind has yet to know what truly waits for us on the other side of life. Whether we go to heaven or hell, get reincarnated into a fish, or simply just disappear into the void. Either way, do remember that it's not something to obsess about. As a famous quote once said, "Do not seek death, for death will find you, but seek the road or journey which makes death a fulfillment." Dag Hamar Skjold. Thank you for joining us on this mysterious journey toward the truths that await beyond life. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see related topics, do give us a like and subscribe to show your support. Click the notification bell so you'll always be part of our deep discussions. Thank you for watching. Take care and may you live life to the fullest.